Thus, at one level in the human organism, I have the eye, which internally is a metamorphosed ear that is enclosed externally by a metamorphosed larynx. On the other hand, if we take the larynx and ear together as a whole, then at another level, we have a metamorphosed eye. I've indicated something that leads in a very important direction. You only have a whole if you combine the will element, which is pulsing through the larynx in the act of speech, with the more intellectual and sensual element, which passes through the ear. We have to see this clearly as a simple fact. If we take either the ear or the larynx out of context, it is only an abstraction. You will never arrive at a whole if you separate things that belong together from each other. The physiological physicists or physiological physiologists who study the ear and the larynx in isolation are acting in terms of their research procedures in exactly the same way that you would be if, in order to heal a person, you dissected him or her, instead of studying things in their organic interaction. That's what makes the science of metamorphoses difficult. You can't look for the metamorphoses in a simplistic way. You have to investigate the inner dynamic, the reality, the actuality. If we start out from the false premise that the eye and the ear are equally sense organs, then we will have a completely false view of what follows from this relationship. When I see, it is something quite different from when I hear. When I see, the same thing happens in the eye as when I hear and speak at the same time. On a higher level, an activity that I can only compare to speaking accompanies the actual receptive activity of the eye. We can really achieve something in this area only if we try to grasp the realities. For when we become aware that here in the eye two different kinds of things are united, which otherwise, in the case of hearing, of sound, are shifted to apparently completely different bodily organs, then we start to realize that in seeing, in the eye, something takes place that is like a kind of communication with oneself. The eye always acts the way that you act when you hear something and repeat it first, in order to understand it. The nature of the eye's activity is really as if you listened but didn't grasp it correctly yet. If the other person says, quote, "he is writing," close quote, you're still unclear, so you repeat, quote, "he is writing," close quote. Only then is the whole matter complete. That's the way it is for the eye with light phenomena. They enter our consciousness because of the curious fact that our eye has a vital part. But this becomes the full experience of sight only when we reproduce it in the part of the eye located in the front that corresponds to the larynx. When we see, we are speaking with ourselves etherically. The eye is talking to itself. Thus we can't compare something that is the result of talking with ourselves, in other words, something that already comprises the typical activity of the human being, with hearing alone, which is only one element, one part. If you thoroughly think this idea over for yourself, you can gain an extraordinary amount from it, because you can see how far the materialistic view of the world has wandered off into absolute unreality by comparing things that are not directly comparable at all, such as the ear and the eye. Because of the very superficiality of this way of viewing things, which does not look at real wholes, we stray from a spiritual view of nature, period.